The Me&Him podcast. So here we are again at the Me&Him podcast, Dad. How you going?
I'm so excited.
You're always excited. Yeah, but you sound like you're the last thing you want to be doing. Am I keeping you up? It's like 5:30 p.m.
To be honest, at my age, it could be the last thing I'm doing.
It might be. Yeah, I thought it might just be more bedtime.
No, for God's sake, son, you know the hours that I keep. I get less sleep than half the people on the planet.
Yeah. I don't know.
And I survive.
Maybe there's something to be said for just wearing your body down so that, it's kind of like post-traumatic thriving. It builds your immunity up against life the more you kind of abuse yourself. Is there a theory around that, or is that just me making it up?
I don't know, but I've been wearing my body down as hard as I can. I've lost 30 kilos and I've still got 20 to go. So
that's good.
I consider myself to be a partial failure.
When you get to those one-arm push-ups, I tell you, then I'll be impressed.
Hey, the only one-arm push-up that I'm interested in is raising this glass of wine to my mouth.
The elbow. He's doing that elbow workout. Cool. Well, here we are, episode 4. We're still doing a few recordings because when we launch this, the idea is to sort of launch and have them coming out weekly. So we haven't actually done anything except I've put it to my Facebook group, and I've had a few people listen. In fact, 30 people have listened, Dad. Did you know that? 30 whole people.
Wow, that many.
We're affecting the world.
That's half the world's population, isn't it?
Well, we'll be, give it another couple of years the way things are going. No, 30. It's actually 33 when I last looked. Of course, I'm getting updates every 5 minutes. I'm so excited.
I'm
not
so
really
impressed by statistics,
Well, what I was hoping is people would listen and give us a bit of feedback, right? Just so they say that's a pile of shit. Or they'll go, hey, that was actually quite amusing. Or that was good, but could you just tweak this bit, change that, add this? Nothing yet.
And of course, when they offer their suggestions, we will do just the opposite.
Well, depends who's talking, right? Like, yes, we'll take it under advisement, definitely. And I guess when this does come out and it is live on different podcasting platforms, we will set an email, put an email account there for people to give us their feedback, because to be honest, Dad, I don't know about you, whilst we're going to explore the tapestry of our lives and traumas and all the rest of it and good times, I am kind of interested to see who out there who's in a similar situation, maybe as a young male or a middle-aged male or a child of a despondent father or distant father. I'm kind of interested to connect with a few people through doing something like this.
That's the marketing man in you, son, and you're a very good marketing man.
No, it's more the messaging man, because I think I heard once at a conference. Now, this is very much a catchphrase, but you run with me here. That if you're not making $1 million, you're not making a difference. I heard that once, right? And the context of it was money is a feedback loop for needs being satiated, things being met, and what have you.
You've been listening to the wrong gurus.
Well, I listened to a lot of gurus, to be honest with you. And that was just one thing that struck
Except
me.
me.
And I listen, whether I actually take heed, two different things. I listen, I watch aghast and go, what the hell's going on over there? No, look, just on that point.
At the moment, you're watching a ghost.
No, we've still got to fix that lighting, don't we? The point I'm making, I guess, is that why it's important to me isn't just, hey, want people to listen and we'll be famous, because this ain't going to happen.
No,
very unlikely.
That's all bullshit. We're doing this.
We're doing this for us
to have a proper discourse.
Yes, but because of the person I am, I like to share what I'm learning with others, and part of this is a way to vocalize some of the lessons, to think more deeply around certain topics around male health and relationships, etc., male relationships, and have it help in some small way others, or at least even encourage people to open up a little bit, maybe.
Yes, all worthwhile ambitions, but that's not the actual impetus which caused us to do it.
We just wanted to catch you some stuff before you died, basically.
Let's focus on us, and if our traumatic relationship resonates with anyone else, well, that's either a good or a bad thing.
Hopefully good. All right, let's get started. The Me&Him podcast. So we've been taking a little trip down memory lane, I guess. It's been more of just, focusing on your history, growing up. I've been learning a thing or two about the austere circumstances, I guess, of Didda, which is the great-granddad and granddad and the rest. And then we shared a very similar experience at Napier Street / Freeman's Bay High School. Yep. I don't know how, maybe if we had my son go to one of those schools, he might be telling the same story, maybe something's never changed.
God, we wouldn't wish that on him in a million years.
Totally. I got the hell out of Dodge because of that situation, I was like, all right, I'm going, bye New Zealand. And I came to this wonderful country I live in now, Australia. And so, but just going back to that, I'm finding it really interesting, just you getting through primary, moving into your young adult life. I don't know a lot about that. I know a little bit about when you had a few girlfriends at uni before you met mum, and then obviously more after that. So fill me in. Tell me a little bit more about the school time stuff that went on for you.
I see. So you're calling me some kind of a roue, are you?
Some kind of what?
Never mind, a womanizer.
Womanizer. No, yeah. You told me about a couple of girlfriends, before you met mum and everything. I was like, okay, so I understand a little bit of that, but I don't really know much before that.
All right, I'll tell you about the transition period.
Mm-hmm.
In the schooling system in New Zealand at that point in time in the 50s, there was the slum school that I went to, which went up to what was called Standard 6.
Mm-hmm.
And you left there about 12 to 13, unless you were retarded and you left there about 18.
You're not allowed to say that. All right.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Fair enough. All right. Continue from retarded.
Hey, we're all retarded in one way or another.
True. Yeah, I'll take that one.
We've got to be fair about this. Okay. In the modern parlance, challenged in some dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Is that acceptable?
That's perfect.
Thank
Ding.
you.
Correct. We can move on.
I didn't know that in the suburbs there were transitional schools where, and I'm harking back to the system in New Zealand in the 50s, you stopped at Standard 4 and then you had 2 years of what was called intermediate to prepare you for high school, which typically you started at age 13.
So just to background you in Australian schools here, because that's where my kids went, it goes up to what they call years instead of standards, year 6, and then you go to high school, right? So intermediate took 5 and 6 by the sounds of things.
Yes.
And carved them off to a different school.
That's correct. And so my dad he started work as a labourer for a large construction firm, and he worked his way up to be a foreman, and his heroes were architects and engineers. And that's what he saw his son becoming.
Oh, okay.
As a measure of success. So they took me along to Mount Roskill Grammar towards the end of the year before I started. And I was part of the class of 57. And I was enrolled in metalwork and woodworking and so forth, things which were largely foreign to me. But what my salvation was, and none of us knew, was a letter which came to my parents just before December in 1956, requesting my attendance at the school for a test of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
And it transpired that the entire intake for 1957, regardless of what they were studying, had to sit a form of examination. And it was all cold. We knew nothing about it. We had no opportunity to prepare for it. So my parents took me along, and I went and I did it. And then the very first day of school, I found myself in the top academic stream for that year, studying English, of course, which was a mandatory subject. And thank God it was. I love the English language so much.
That's very hard for the Kiwis, eh, bro? Speaking the Queen's English, bro.
I don't know. I have no idea how to speak these languages. Can you hear me,
a
please?
bit of Russian as well, have you?
No, I rushed that bit. So I was English, physics, chemistry, mathematics, and French. The intake for that class turned out to be about 56 kids, so they had to do a bit of a culling. And since I wasn't doing French and Latin, I was put down into the next academic level, which was, one level below.
Just imagine the career opportunities you missed out on from not doing French and Latin. I mean, such a shame.
No, I did French, and I've got some French stories for you, but we'll deal with them later.
Right.
But what was interesting, son, is I had such a sheltered existence as this frightened little only child. I didn't know what mathematics was. I didn't know what physics was. I didn't know what chemistry was. And it was the result of that bloody test which streamed me into science, which I was a natural for.
Right.
And I never knew anything about it.
Well, I guess a lot of kids don't know physics and chemistry. That's why you go to school, right? Like you learn about what those things are.
Yeah, well, I ended up being very good at it. And I didn't, because you see, I was always creative. Prior to what I've just discussed with you, prior to that December and its test, the people at the Napier Street School had identified that I was very good with painting and the arts. You got the artist, mathematician sort of link going on. So let's use the word encouraged in inverted commas, my parents to take me to an intermediate school on the weekends where I could paint and do creative things.
Wow.
So it was there from a very early age. And again, I didn't know I had it.
Well, most of us don't as kids, right? We're just trying to express ourselves, trying to find what fits. A lot of things don't fit. And then sometimes parents force us into those areas that don't fit and creates all this.
So I ended up, not through any design of my own or my parents, being this curious mix of highly creative and highly academic, especially in the sciences. Right. No, don't be so silly.
Well, there is definitely a link, though, between genius and, mathematicians and musical ability.
Let's not use the word genius.
I'm not saying that
there is a plurality of talents in every one of us. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they get nurtured and sometimes they don't.
Exactly.
No human being is just an engineer from birth, or a bloody artist from birth. Mm-hmm. We're all a mixture of things.
We've still got to create, right? We've got to create, whether we're creating drawings and buildings or creating art and wonderful theatre.
Exactly.
We've got to create something. So how did those two things come together with regards to your schooling? Did they come together or did you lose one?
There was an art class, by the way. Mm-hmm. Which was an elective, and I also did it as well as all the other stuff. But, as you go through life, certain things swamp other things.
Sure.
And the creative dimension came out much later on when your mother and I were sitting down as newlyweds and dealing with bureaucracy. She had the discipline to write in the appropriate manner. And I came up with the creative ideas, and the two of us actually pulled off things that should not normally have happened.
Yeah, well, I guess there is a high creative gene, you have. I would suggest all of us. I suggest most people have it. It's just like you're saying. It's about exercising the muscle. You're either pushed in one area and you sort of think, this is what I'm all about, and you get a lot of experience in that area, be it an engineer, whatever. Or you're pushed in, or you can find your finesse and talents and grow what you want to express down the line. But it's I agree with you. We're always a bit of all of the above.
Yeah, we are. And while we're on that subject, I just want to bring up intuition. Mm-hmm. I've learned that it's not just women who have intuition; men have intuition too. But
we're just better at blocking it.
We are, because we believe in our God, which is logic.
Mind. Yes. We can work it out.
Yeah, I mean, these days, as a much older being, When the little voice says, oh, I think this is the right idea, and my logic says, that's a load of crap, I now take the little voice's advice more often than I used to, because for much of my young man's life, I didn't take it at all. And I tripped up so many times, I've lost count.
Well, I think that's a journey common to many of us, just the thinking, growing up in a thinking world and believing you can work it all out if you just think harder and better and longer and faster.
But it's such a male thing.
Oh, it is.
I mean,
I think women succumb to the same thing. I know a couple of overthinkers, but you're right. The intuition level is stronger. I think it's because of connection to biology, connection to the earth and childbearing, and there's something to have more of a grounding.
I think it is very genetic. And look, at the danger of being labelled sexist by some of the so-called open-minded people out there, yep, I'm sexist. There is a difference between the two. The two sexes are there for a particular reason, and that is to procreate and move the species
Not
forward in terms of numbers.
Experimentate.
No. We're talking about playtime activities there.
Oh, where are we going with that one? All right, okay. So interesting. Thanks for filling me in on that. We may just move it along a little bit here to something that I'm not actually quite sure of, but we'll move anyway.
Well, if you're not sure, how the hell can I be?
I don't know where we're going. What is happening here? Who am I? The Me&Him podcast. So by the sounds of things, you jumped straight through from intermediate into high school. I, on the other hand, went to intermediate, and it's like a prep school for high school, I guess. I don't understand why I had to leave one school, go to a different school, which was admittedly not too far away, thankfully, and then go to a third school. It seemed like a lot of jumping around. I don't know how much I benefited from those 2 extra years at that different school, whether it prepped me or not. Maybe it did. But I do understand the concept of it sort of adjusting you to that higher level of learning. So what was it like jumping straight in there from, what was it, standard 6 you said?
Yeah.
Straight into high school.
We see, son, I didn't know any better. I was just a 13-year-old kid.
And, none of us know much at that age. We think we do.
And I'd had very little interaction with my peer group because things were very austere in the middle of the cities, and there weren't many kids around anyway, and there were no bloody playgrounds, etc. So I went in cold.
Sounds like the ghetto. Probably was, wasn't it, really? It was a bit of a ghetto.
Relative to the circumstances of the time, yes. That's a very good...
you called it slum earlier,
simile.
So I guess, it's those
well,
two things.
it was the slums.
Yeah.
There was no two ways about it. The suburbs were where everybody wanted to be.
Fancy people, yeah.
No, I mean everybody wanted to be because they'd bulldozed the market gardens and they'd created places out in the fresh air and the sunshine. You didn't have that in the city.
Okay.
There were two components. One was the strangeness of it, and the other, which I subsequently learned as a teenager, young teenager, eventually coming into pubescence and becoming hormonal, as happens to all of us.
Yep, around that 13-year-old age. I think mine was 12 when I started to think along those lines, early bloomer.
Well, I was a little bit older, but never mind. You build your world, if you don't have brothers and sisters, based on the only paradigm you've got.
Right.
You're completely different to your parents.
Well, hopefully, right? I mean, some people, I guess, like to be like them, which if your parents, if you don't like what they're doing, maybe you don't want to be like them.
Well, it's not just that, son, although I didn't like what they were doing to each other. You don't have any other benchmarks.
Sure.
And so you generate your own, and you believe that all other kids are like you.
Fill in, you create it in your mind.
Yeah, so, I mean, I had great difficulty adjusting to my peer group because I thought they were interested in life, death, the universe, etc., as I was.
That's the subject of this podcast.
But they weren't. They just wanted to party and get down and hump away and be happy.
Right. Young, dumb, and full of fun.
I had similar drives.
Right.
But my success rate amongst the gorgeous young ladies who showed interest was rather low because I had a different spectrum of intellectual interest.
Can I just say something here? You've shown me some of these photos of you as around that age, like, maybe you were 17, you're 19, 20, whatever.
The earliest one,
Oh my God, you're like James Dean, mate. Good absolute studly looking character. I thought I looked good in some of my younger shots. I was like, God damn, got those Dalmatians.
Son, I didn't know it.
Yeah, I know.
So
the problem is I did, and
up.
it didn't help me either.
Yeah, I mean, it's only looking back with the benefits of time, I realised how screwed up I was.
Well, how lucky you were to have those looks too, right?
Oh, no, but I didn't know I was bloody good looking then.
So can I ask you a serious question then?
Yeah, sure.
Because it's one thing to be blessed with good genes and, and to be of that age where these opportunities are available to you. It's another thing to be able to be courageous enough and self-assured enough and integrated enough to make approaches and be confident in yourself and all the rest of the things that one would hope our sons have, that anyone has. You didn't have that. But you did have a dad at home, but you obviously didn't get that lesson from him or anyone else.
I couldn't communicate with my parents on the level that I was at, because by the age of 9 or 10, I was so well read. Again, out of loneliness, because I was an only child, and not because I had any foreknowledge that
was
reading
your
a lot would be good.
Finding comfort and solace in absorbing what?
What else do you do as a
especially then, no
lonely,
iPhones, no iPads,
only child?
No, yeah, Dad, I hear you.
Those days, all you had was books.
You could have taken a stick in a wheel and gone down the road, maybe.
I don't know. That had been done before.
I don't need to reinvent the wheel. Okay, sorry, I was just taking the piss. That's on a serious note.
Well deserved, son. Well deserved.
You had to read, right? You had to read. That was your entertainment. So you became I guess, not so worldly, but you became more worldly. What then?
Not so much
relate
that.
To your parents?
I became
literary. Well read.
It fostered my creative dimension, because I drew a lot as well. But I didn't know at the time what a gift it was for my command of the English language, which I absolutely adore and have revered for the rest of my life.
You were well read, but let me bring that to what we chatted about offline, which was the whole getting to know, picking up women, getting a girlfriend. When you said you didn't make it with the ladies, but you look like you were James Dean, but you weren't able to get it across the line sometimes. What was your handicap?
Yeah, but you see, James Dean, until he becomes a star, doesn't see himself in the mirror as a star.
Yeah, sure.
He just sees him as someone with a few pimples which need to be squeezed, etc., etc. Come on, let's get to the brutal reality of it.
Yeah, we all look at ourselves differently than others look at us, I guess, and that's why fame is so hard to handle for so many people, I guess.
I can relate. Well, sorry, I can't relate to that from experience, but I can.
Well, you're after the segment, Dad. You never know. Go viral.
Hang on, son. Let's get it. Let's not jump too far.
I guess what I'm trying to get to is how did you find that adjustment? How did you go, overall?
It was very difficult, son, because I didn't know. And I continued not to know. Even after I was married to your mother, it was a very beautiful girl, I had difficulty at work. the other guys would go to the pub and they wouldn't ask me to join them. And I didn't know why, because we worked together.
You're out of the loop.
But it was because I wasn't like them. I couldn't relate on that level, and I didn't understand I was the one who was dysfunctional. Okay, they might have been a bit crude and rude and so forth.
But everyone still wants to belong, right? Like,
you always need to feel accepted by your peer group. Otherwise, you can develop all sorts of problems.
Yeah. Male friendships, man, that's something I've learned.
Fuck! Tell me about it, pal.
Yeah.
I've worked hard on that, and I didn't know I had a fractured psychology. There were no such things as therapists those days. All that bullshit. No one believed that.
You had to work it out with a bottle, really. That's the only...
sorry, no disrespect to the current therapists. I'm talking about the 50s.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, let's get this in perspective. It probably took me 20 to 30 years to realign myself. And I must say the significant women in my life helped me enormously. I owe them sincerely a huge debt.
Helped you with what?
To become the man I am today. Someone whom people like, who's sociable, who's hospitable. I've always been hospitable, but I didn't know how to go about it.
Maybe
the
also
right way.
doing that with the right motivations, the right intent.
Well, it's only when you know what the right motivations are that you can exercise them.
Yeah, totally.
If you don't know, you have to be trained somehow.
I'll just share one quick thing. I really get that message. I really understand that, because I remember thinking I just wanted to be well respected for my area of expertise. I want to be one of the best in my industry. I wanted to make a difference, and all the rest. And so I did that, and I wrote a book, and I did speeches and created events and businesses and all that sort of stuff.
Can I interrupt you, son?
No.
Those are very positive drivers, and I admire you for that.
Okay. Well, thank you. Here's the thing, though, and here's the lesson, and this was a lesson I learned in, I think, late 20s, maybe very early 30s, was that why I was doing that turned out to be, it wasn't so much what I was doing was bad, but the motivation behind what I was doing was to complete something in myself, to feel more whole.
Yep.
I had grown up needing to not perform, but also to get noticed in order to be
recognized.
Loved. Yeah. Had to be recognized, to feel like I was loved, to feel like I was worthy enough, and all the rest of it, right? It was just a product of the dynamic of the upbringing and what have you. Everyone has their thing.
But it's a core need, son.
It's a core need. So I had gone on this mission to be the best at this, be the best at that, like all young men do, I guess. But Dad, I ended up on stage, I'd signed a couple of books for people. I was doing all these talks. I was sort of one of the organizers of this whole big event, hundreds of people there. And I remember thinking to myself, why do I feel so goddamn empty? Like the whole of the Grand Canyon has opened up within me, and I am just, I'm nothing. And I was so angry with myself, going, I've got everything I wanted. I achieved it. I'm here. Why am I so unhappy? And it just pissed me off. It pissed me off. And then I realized, it took me, by the way, a number of weeks, maybe months, maybe even a year or two. I can't remember now. It was that long ago. But I finally learned. Why?
You had to read your own book again.
That wasn't that book. That was a whole book about the industry I was in.
Oh, okay.
But that was the start of my second book. But I learned that my motivation was all wrong. Not what I was doing. So the way I not liken it is like it's like an iceberg. So the tip of the iceberg showing above the water, and that's what you call your talent, right? It's showing above the water. Everyone goes, "Hey, look at Jason. He's such a good speaker, such a good promoter. He's so good with people and this and that, and what have you." And I'm like, "Yeah, look at me. I'm awesome." And then underneath it, though, underneath this iceberg is actually a dysfunction. I don't feel worthy enough. I don't feel secure enough.
It's a beautiful metaphor, son. every one of us can see the picture in our minds.
So you know what was beautiful about that though? When I understood, when I actually saw it in my own mind that talent I got is good, it helps people. I shouldn't, I don't need to, dismantle it. But when I understood that below what was driving this talent, and I was, in a way, I'm fortunate to have the talent, but it was only because I had to compensate for something I felt wasn't in my life. When as soon as I saw the bottom of that iceberg and realized that, oh shit, I can just do this because I want to do it. I can just speak to people and because I'm interested in them and be of service. I don't have to do it to fill something in me. Oh my God, that's where I went. I think I just went up one level, or maybe one part of one level, because I let go of this void within me. And I'm not saying completely, but it was such a visceral moment that I had no choice but to digest that lesson.
Do you realize, son, one thing which has really astounded me is that when I went through the passage that you went through, and I realized that being of service to people was worthwhile both for them and for me, much later on I suddenly found out that independently of me whatsoever, my son, you, it turned out to be a major talent in hospitality. My daughter, your elder sister, has turned out to have a hugely significant global position in hospitality. And my youngest son has spent almost 30 years in hospitality. I wonder whether it's been a similar driver for all of us.
Maybe. I mean, it's hard to know. Just look, to be honest, when it all came down to it, for me, it was always about sharing good energy and love and help. The way I used to train people around being hospitable and, there was a lot of basics to, looking someone in the eyes, remembering their name and all the rest of it. But it was about making them take them one level up in terms of their energy. So when they leave that place and they have interactions with anyone outside of our doors, those actions are more positive and more enlightened and higher energy. And then when they go back to their kids, they feel better, and their wives, and they hug them because we were like almost the sermons on the mount, getting them wasted with helping them to dance around and be idiots.
You weren't Pentecostal, were you? No disrespect to Christians, by the way.
Slipped a little card in their pocket. Hey, if you're ever down, give me a call. No, look, not quite that. But yes, you do have a responsibility / you are guilty as charged getting us involved to some degree in the hospitality industry. And I think we should park that and move on. Well, some really interesting perspective there, and it's brought to mind something for me that I think may have shared with you before. I can't quite remember, but it's another indelible memory in my mind, and I wanted to explain it to you, and then get you to talk about what I guess the insight that I had. So let me just paint it this way. I drew a lot like you as a kid. I drew lots of pictures, always trying to get things creatively on paper. I wasn't a great artist. I think you were better than I was, seeing some of your work when you were younger. But I had to draw. I had to keep drawing. And one thing I drew, and this expression came to mind at one point, the expression was, people are as mirrors but for to see oneself. And I drew a circle of people standing around with mirrors on their faces and a dotted outline of someone in the very middle who was meant to be me. And the whole premise of it was that what I see in your eyes is who I think I am. So basically I am reflected in your eyes, and that's how I make up my personality.
And how old were you then?
12. Maybe.
Wow.
12. And so that was me realizing that, or thinking, that I believe falsely, that my identity came from the way I was perceived in other people's eyes. And it took me, I don't know, 10 years maybe after that, 20 years after that, to go, oh, hang on a minute. No, I create who I am. And then it shows up in other people's eyes. Oh my God.
You're right.
How badly did I get that wrong? So from the element of how we perceive the world, I'd be interested to sort of go back to what you're talking about how you ended up from this only child situation, parents you couldn't relate to, you're out thrown into this high school environment, feeling a bit isolated. Tell me more.
Well, everything was new, son. I'd never been there before. I'd never met any of those children, some of whom have become lifelong friends.
They all come from outside different areas and everything?
Yeah, well, you see, what had happened is that my parents worked hard, but they didn't have the money to buy a house. And through the social system which existed then, in Australia they're called commission houses, but in New Zealand they were called state houses. And if you qualified...
Council housing.
Yeah, you went into a transition zone, which, funnily enough, in the army, the old army barracks beneath the zoo in Western Springs.
Wow.
And we used to hear the lions roaring at night.
That was the housing? The army.
This was the transition.
Oh, whew. Wow, that's interesting, isn't it?
It was called a transit camp, and it literally was a transit camp, like a boot camp.
Moving into what you said, state housing?
No, before.
Okay, yeah,
they facilitated the move from the hovels that we were in.
The slums.
In the slums. To this intermediate form of, which was a repurposed army barracks.
Another transition, right.
Oh, Christ, yeah, life's full of them. and then as each family was allocated, and I will use the word commission house for our Australian listeners, a commission house, they were then transported with the small amount of worldly goods they had to one of these commission houses in the suburbs, and life began again. And for a young child, sunshine, fresh air, places to play, and neighbourhood kids to play with.
Whole new world.
It was a whole new world.
So how did that help your transition, like being socialised, I guess?
It was the beginning of it, son, but I didn't know at the time it was the beginning.
Okay.
And then I went to Mount Roskill Grammar, and I've already told you about the preliminary IQ tests, etc., etc. So we'll move on to puberty and the need, as we all have, because we're sexual, to connect one way or another with the opposite sex.
Well,
I learned the hard way how dysfunctional I was. I was wanting to talk about things on a high intellectual level, and it wasn't because I was super bright. Let's nail this one.
You just thought that's what they'd be interested in.
It was because I had been so isolated, no brothers, no sisters, no kids to play with, and so forth.
Yeah,
I didn't know what you didn't know. I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I shouldn't say this in this modern world.
No,
it was hard. It was hard both ways, but it's really hard to connect. And it was the beginning of a long journey which lasted about 20 years of painful, through perceived rejection by my peer group, awareness that I was the odd one out, not them. And something had to be done to rehabilitate me.
Yeah, or maybe you just need to do something different.
No, it was at a very deep level, son.
Different, maybe.
Because I had been so isolated, I didn't know any better. And I'd formed this false paradigm about how others in my peer group were. And the whole thing had to be turned up on its head. And when you're that young, you don't really understand what the hell's going on. And you don't have any professional help.
Well, usually you blame yourself, don't you? It's just like, must be me.
Well, no, you just you know it's you. That's the last thing.
Like, damn it, it's me. Oh my God.
No, but it takes a while before you know it's you.
It's an aha moment, maybe.
And you go through all this pain, and what's wrong with me, and
Again, it's that blind spot. You just don't know how you don't know it's there.
Fortunately, those days, youth suicide wasn't fashionable. Otherwise, I would have been a candidate.
Wow. Whoa, there we go.
That's a glib comment, but it's got some relevance to today.
I hear you, Dad. I hear you. And look, you know, where we're at with that is these topics are so deep. And whilst we're laughing and recounting our own stories, the reality is there are a lot of people out there who've had it a lot worse than us. A lot of people who have lost people who are so dear to them.
My heart and my compassion goes out to them because for all my misdemeanors, somehow I goddamn survived.
You made it to you're bloody 80. You're bloody 80, and, you know, hey, I'm 53. I'm not doing... I actually thought I wouldn't get past 24, but I think that's pretty common. A lot of people I speak to, they're like...
I thought the same thing about you too, son.
Oh, you thought about me. I thought you were going to say about yourself. God damn. It was that obvious. I blame you.
No, I was just joking.
That's all right. No worries. Hey, well, look, it's been a really great conversation, and I've enjoyed the twists and turns. I did want to try and squeeze an email in, if you're cool with that, for another couple of minutes.
So long as you can forewarn me as to which one it is.
Yeah, I'll forewarn you in just 1 second. Emails from Dad. So emails from Dad. Now, I've taken a little bit of a different tack with this one while we're still finding the best way to approach this segment. Obviously, it says emails from Dad, but the email that I've chosen to look at for this episode is the one from the song we're working on, which I thought would be cool. Are you happy for me to share a little bit about that?
Why not, son?
Okay. So since the age of about 40, yes, I'm an old dude.
Oh, you're still that young.
No. Well, since 40, in fact 42, I picked up a guitar, decided it was enough of me telling the story about how I never, how the guitar hurt too much when I learned to play it when I was 12, and, I should have gone back to it and never did go back to it. I was like, I've been doing that for about 30 years now. Maybe it's just time to play the guitar. So I picked up a guitar, bought a cheap guitar, jumped onto guitar tabs and started learning. And ever since then, have been playing and loving just the ability to express myself through music, but also to put some songs together, etc., etc.
John, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah, please.
Twice in my life, because music has been very important to me, I've bought guitars and tried to self-learn and failed. Mm-hmm. I am in awe of your ability and how you've done what you've done.
Oh, thanks. I'm still a bit of a hacker, to be honest with you. But thank you, Dad. But it means a lot because I just love being able to make beautiful sounds. I mean, how cool is it to be able to make beautiful sounds and then sing along to them or make words up to sing along to them? I'm no singer, but to be able to express myself on top of a melody that I'm making up, I don't know, it's kind of fun. So I use it for a bit of medicine as much as anything else. But look, the reason I bring it up is because I shot you a tune via email, just a chord structure, and then I said, hey, give me, this is just to share something with you. I'd love to get some lyrics because you're very good with lyrics and poetry and words and stuff. And you sent me something back, which has turned into something pretty cool. It's turning into something pretty cool. So I thought it might be nice just to sort of, just to highlight maybe some of the lyrics you gave me. We could do this over a number of episodes potentially, and then potentially share the song with the listeners.
Eventually, I think that's a very good idea.
Yeah, so I came up with these chords. Now I'm not going to play them now. Maybe I could dub them in.
No,
later,
it's okay.
But you came back with a love song to them, and I didn't expect it.
And for the benefit of any listeners out there, I cannot sing. So me expressing my words will sound awful, but you just got to put up with it.
Yeah, well, you're not going to sing them. You just explain, I guess, because I'll give you the first couple of verses. It's why did you say that you'd always love me, and then why did you take the sun from above me? All right, straight away, those two verses kind of hit you kind of quick, going, oh, why'd you say you always love me? Why would you take the sun from above me? Oh, far out, this is heavy shit. So I was in straight away. I was like, yes, that's what I needed.
You failed, and this is no disrespect to your son. Yes, it started with the word why, but it was stretched out to why, you know.
Can you sing it?
Trying to signify
why?
No, that's blues. It's why in terms of anguish and pain. That's my boy.
Why did you say?
Why?
Okay. Yeah, both of us we're gonna be killing cats.
No one's going to listen from now on. Okay, it goes on to say, why did I think that you loved me? Mm-hmm. We had our moments in the sand, waves in the distance, hand in hand, as if this was forever planned. Why did you break it? How could you take it? You tore my heart from strand to strand.
Yes. Well, you got me with that. I was like, oh, yeah, you know, as if this was forever planned. I was like, perfect. So it actually worked really well with the chords. And
yeah, it did. You've done a great job.
It's coming together. And I guess what I like about it, you know, whilst emails from Dad is you send a lot of random stuff, stories of concerts and poems.
Lots of crap.
But
it's unbelievable.
Sometimes just TMI, you know, overload. But the fact that I asked via email, just sharing a piece of, you know, chord structure with you, thinking, I want to do more with this. I don't know what to do. I wasn't feeling that inspired with the lyrics. And you came back with this. I straight away when I tried it out, I'm like, oh, I got a bit of, and to be honest, can I be frank here? I've listened to my recording of that song, which probably makes me sound like a complete narcissist. My recording of that song with those lyrics, as I've sort of been practicing it, probably 20 or 30 times in full, just to really because I something about it I like.
Well, that proves you're a musician, because they're all complete narcissists.
Probably. Oh man, I'm a musician. Yay, look at me go, Dad. Oh my God. Anyways, so the emails from Dad, look, thank you for the lyrics. I'll maybe fill in the listeners on the next part of that song on the next episode, and then potentially put it out at some point once we've actually released.
Oh, by the way, we have to put in a copyright disclaimer.
Yes,
this is copyright Jealousich and Jealousich 2024.
Yeah. Jealousich and Sons, Matthew and Sons.
No. The copyright's very important, because when it takes off, and Rihanna and whoever else. Oh, sorry.
Oh, Rihanna, yeah.
Do it.
Beyonce, yeah.
We need to make the filthy shekels.
All right, we'll protect ourselves. Yeah. All right, don't go stealing it, anyone. All right, we're going to wrap it up right now. The Me&Him podcast. So how did you find this episode, Dad? Were you satisfied? Would you give it a 5-star rating?
I'd give it my normal 2.5, but then again, I'm an optimist.
2.5. Half full, maybe half full of stars. Well, I think we covered a few interesting areas there, not just a little bit more about our collective stories, but our perception of ourselves and the interface of that with the different times. You know, there's lots to explore here.
That's the whole. That's the reason why we embarked upon this journey, son.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pleased it's going the way it's going. And you know me, I would have sliced my wrists by now if I didn't have a decent sense of humour.
What's your favourite expression again? Life is far too important to be taken seriously?
No, you almost got it.
Oh, did I? I was just kind of throwing it out there.
Life is far too serious to be taken seriously.
Oh, that's right. On that note, more serious business coming.
Okay.
Hopefully, just stay with me, Dad. Episode 5. Give us another week, will you? Could be our best one yet.
God, you are a marketing man, aren't you?
Well, I'm just trying to get people to hang on for the next episode, but mainly you.
I don't give a fuck about people hanging on.
Mainly you. Come on, Dad. We can do this together. Let's get to 81.5.
Oh, yeah. You're having to lift me up on my fucking puppet strings, aren't you? Yeah. Big deal.
I'll give you a reason to live, Dad. That's fine.
Oh, yeah.
Live so 5.
Well, it used to be women who gave me a reason to live, so it's fair enough.
Now it's episode 5. Alrighty, been a pleasure. Bye. The Me and Him podcast.